this music down. There we are. Right. There we go. I think we're live. I think we are here. Hello and welcome to episode 18, I suppose. Episode 18. It was meant to be yesterday, but, with the way things were and the way things are at the moment, I thought, let's keep it to Monday because I'm not working on Monday and, I've got time today to do today's live stream. But thank you ever so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. And if there are any questions with regards to English teaching, English learning, English generally, or any questions outside of English, then please feel free to post your comments below and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. But first of all, a huge thanks to everyone that's joined. I can see Victor's here. Victor's joined us, so let me get his comment up, and here we are. So Victor says hello, and we've also got Zineb. Zineb is here. He says, good afternoon. Good afternoon, Zineb. Nice for you to join me. I've just known your channel. Thank you ever so much for joining. And Zineb, if you've got any questions with regards to English learning, English teaching, English exams, anything else like that, then I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. At the moment, I've got the sun in my eyes. I'm going to just pull my blind down in just a moment. But thank you ever so much for everyone that's joining. That's great. There we go, that's a bit better. The sun's not in my eyes now. Right, so any questions that you have with regards to English as a language, English as a subject, anything else that you may have, then please comment below. Right, now a huge thanks to everybody who decided to watch my latest video. My latest video was about using an online whiteboard, and I'm quite surprised at how well received it was, and so a huge thanks to everyone who watched this. For those that haven't watched this, bear with me, I'll get a link. In this video I did share 10 ideas with how to use an online whiteboard for those teachers that are curious, and it was quite well received, as I mentioned. Probably one of my most successful videos in such a short time, so huge thanks to everyone. I'm glad it did help, and here is the link. 10 ideas for a whiteboard. There we go. And what's interesting is you can actually use these ideas in a physical classroom as well as in a online environment. So I'm glad it was well received. Now let's go back to our main setting here. So a couple of things with regards to myself. Last week was a kind of a week off, well, not a week off for me, but a week off particularly for a lot of students, because it was what we call a half term, and a half term means a holiday for students, like a week holiday or 2 weeks at the most. And so for many students they had a week off. For me, I did not have a week off. I was I spent a week working within a special educational needs school, and that was quite enlightening, quite interesting. But there was also a chance for me to have a bit of a rest and a break and a bit of a breather before going back into these state schools. And so from Wednesday to Friday this week, I'm going back into a physical classroom, which is great. It's great to be back in a physical classroom, I suppose. Now, so last week I did have time off, but I was working online, so although not being in a physical classroom, I was doubling up as an online teacher again and trying to pursue some more students. So that was quite good, and I did get quite a few students. Right, so a quick question here with regards to what I mentioned about the whiteboard, and Victor says, do you use your mouse or a digital board for using Preply's whiteboard? Really good question. For me personally, I tend to use my mouse or trackpad as it is here, and this is where I'm constantly moving my fingers around and that sort of thing, and so I use my trackpad or mouse as it is, but one thing that I would like to try and incorporate, I suppose, within an online environment is having a sort of digital board, I guess, or having an overhead board or something overhead, so I can actually do some writing by hand and sharing that as a source. I think that would be really interesting to have this sort of camera that, well, not a camera, but sort of lens that looks down, and you can share that part of the screen and you can make notes by hand, because I'm more of a traditionalist. I think using pen and paper is really useful. The only downside to that, if you are teaching remotely, is that you end up having this sort of piece of paper which can't really be shared. You can take a photo and send it, but it's not as easy as text, I suppose. But for Preply's whiteboard, I tend to just use my mouse, my keyboard, and then I end up saving the screen and that sort of thing. So that's where I am. And trackpads are quite expensive, not just in Brazil but elsewhere as well, but it's an investment that I decided to get when I got all my equipment for remote teaching, I guess. That's about it. Now, where were we? Okay, so in terms of last week, I had a bit of a break. I was working online. I had a break from teaching face to face, and the one thing that I was able to focus on was quite a few lessons last week. I did have quite a few lessons, particularly on Saturday. Saturday seems to be my most popular day, with many students booking up, like 5 or 6 hours of lessons. So Saturday was kind of a bit of a busy time, although I enjoy what I do. But Monday to Friday, I had time during the day, and I worked half a day basically each day, and that was good. That was good fun. But 5-6 hours on a Saturday, not my favourite, but that's what we do, I suppose. This week, as I've mentioned, from Wednesday to Friday, I'm off back into a new school as a teaching assistant, going into a state school and helping out there, and I finish off on Friday, and then I've got evening classes that I run this week, Wednesday to Friday. So quite a few students booked up for my evening classes. Saturday's starting to get booked up, but we'll have to see how that goes. That's about it, really. Right, now, got another introduction here. We've got Miss Widad. Hello from Algeria. Oh, thank you ever so much for joining me. Eric from Etiquette introduced me to your channel. It's really good to have you on board. Really appreciate it. And welcome from the UK where I am. And thank you ever so much for joining. I really appreciate it. And if you've got any questions about teaching or anything in that manner, then I'll be happy to share my advice or share any opinions, or if anything can help. I'm not sure, but we'll see. But thank you for joining. Those that have joined me, maybe Zineb and others, where are you from? Be nice to know where you're from. And how do you say hello in Algeria? It'd be quite interesting to know how you say hello. But yeah. All right. Now, really haven't got much planned for today apart from sharing what's happening with me. And a couple of video ideas that I've got on the pipeline. There's a couple of ideas that I want to try and pursue. I was starting to write down quite a few ideas in terms of what sort of videos to produce in the next coming weeks, I suppose. And one thing that I did discover, because I went into my analytics, was that one of my most popular videos was how to teach pronunciation. How to teach vocabulary. So the one that I'm going to consider working on soon is how to teach pronunciation, because funnily enough, although I teach pronunciation online and face-to-face, I've not necessarily covered how to teach pronunciation, and it's particularly an area of teaching which not many tutors feel so comfortable about covering. It's one of those skills which teachers assume students will pick up the pronunciation rather than focusing a little bit more on the pronunciation within lessons. So one idea I'm thinking of is how to teach pronunciation, or what to do and how to teach, what to include when you want to include pronunciation as part of your tools or skills as a tutor. So that's one thing I'm thinking about. The other one is how to teach grammar. I've not really covered a video on how the teaching of grammar's covered and that sort of thing. But some ideas that I'm thinking of pursuing in the next few weeks, and we'll see if I have time, because at the moment it's kind of busy. Right, any other questions? Any questions about teaching? Any questions about learning? Any questions about exams or that sort of thing? Not sure if there is. If not, I'm going to ramble on and talk about an area of English teaching. I'll get my handy little book out and check. Okay, a quick comment from Miss Widad. Let's bring her question up. And she says, thank you very much. We speak Arabic, so hello is marhaba, I guess. I'm an English student at the university specialised in didactics, and I'm graduating this year. I'm working on my master's thesis. How interesting. Okay, well, good luck with your your master's degree. Funnily enough, it was about 10 years ago when I was studying my master's, and I did bring out my folder for my teaching practice. What I had to I had a portfolio that I had to produce, and each lesson that I was teaching, I had to do the lesson plan, and then I had to reflect on my teaching and also receive feedback from the tutor. And I found that the practical side of teaching really fun and engaging, and the practical side of my teaching really enforced an area of my thesis that I decided to work on, and my thesis being dogme ELT. And if you're not sure what dogme ELT is, it's a philosophy of teaching rather than an approach or a principle. Well, I guess it's a principle, but it's not really approach. It's not really a form of teaching, but it's an idea or an ideal of teaching, where English teaching in particular focuses on communication, focuses on scaffolding language and error correction, and focuses less on materials, so materials light. And 10 years ago, it was a recent publication that I saw, and I thought, oh, I'm going to try this philosophy of teaching in one of my lessons and see how it goes. And for a dogme ELT lesson, it's not really planned to a degree. So I found it quite a struggle. It was more about anticipating the potential things that may come up, the language that may come up, and then responding to that language and scaffolding the language for the students. So I found that quite quite inspiring, and so much so in terms of this principle, this philosophy of teaching, I decided to do my MA thesis on it, and I was fascinated by this type of philosophy of teaching. So I went to different language schools. I interviewed some teachers. I recorded the interviews. I made annotations, a transcript of the interview. I summarized the information. It was a really good project that I was involved with, and it was good. It wasn't really much of a problem when it came down to the thesis. I enjoyed that element of my experience of postgraduate studies. So, sorry, Ms. Wadid, if I'm rambling now, but in terms of your thesis, try and enjoy it as much as you can, because you'll look back at it and you'll go, yeah, I enjoyed it. I got as much out of it as I did. So good luck. I'm sure you'll be fine. And mahaba, I guess, hello. What is good luck in Arabic? It'd be interesting to know. Right, so we've looked at a couple of things. So again, my book, let's have a look at a topic on teaching. Discipline. Yeah, I suppose for me, we can talk about student discipline. For me, when it comes down to discipline and student discipline, my experience outside of an English language classroom within the state environment for the past few weeks in a SEN school, special educational needs school, discipline is one area where there's a greater level of recognition. So the students have challenges in terms of maintaining attention on a particular task, or communicating effectively. They are unable to communicate effectively. They also have some challenges in terms of completing tasks, and so they get distracted very easily. Now, within a language classroom, it's kind of different, and the discipline that we need is that you need to maintain the discipline, first of all, when you first go in the classroom, particularly with young students, young learners. They'll test, they'll push your buttons to see how far they can go. And it's always important to start off quite strict. And there's an expression in English where we say, don't smile till Christmas. Traditionally in the state's education sector, the academic year starts in September. So by Christmas, you will have had them for 3 months, these students. But if you show any let up and allow students to push or see how far they can get before Christmas, you'll have quite a challenging year ahead of you. But so in the UK we say don't smile till Christmas, and the same is in the language classroom, if you have some students for a couple of months, I would say that first week is crucial to maintain your position as a teacher. If you have any problems in terms of motivation and discipline, that first week is crucial, where you define what's required and what's expected, and rather than students taking advantage of you as a tutor. And there's certain things that you can do when it comes down to discipline. You could look at learning all the names of these students. So when you're in the classroom, learn the names of the students, use their names rather than saying you or you. Try to use the names as much as possible, because the students will go, yeah, they know me now. And for me, I have difficulties trying to remember names, because I've taught so many students over the years that remembering 20, 30 students' names is a struggle now. And it's usually the most challenging students that I tend to remember, unfortunately. So I tend to use their names a lot more often than those which seem to blur into the background and are focused and don't cause any issues. So yeah, remember the students' names. Another thing with regards to discipline is to make sure that you have a routine that the students know, a routine that you know and will help you. And also make sure that you have that routine set. Particularly for young learners, they will feel a bit more comfortable with a routine, whereas if things happen and things are unexpected, then it will cause anxiety and difficulty with particular students. So that's two aspects where you can alleviate issues with discipline. Okay. Now, what else? Another thing with regards to discipline is how students feel. If you have students that are interested in a lesson, you won't have any issues with regards to discipline. If the lesson's a bit boring, then students will start to switch off. Particularly the younger ones, they'll cause issues. If the lesson's not engaging, then you're going to have you're going to have a challenge maintaining that interest. And what can you do to make a lesson interesting? Well, maybe that is one video that I need to make in the future. I'm going to make a note of that. How to make a lesson interesting. It's a really interesting question, and something that comes quite naturally now, I guess. Apologies whilst I write this down. But what I would say when it comes down to making a lesson interesting is to be yourself. Try and not be a teacher per se, but try to be that type of teacher that encourages and motivates. And one thing that needs to be that makes a lesson interesting is the material, how the material's delivered, and it's more engaging. If a student looks at the lesson and the teacher knows what the lesson is, then you're going to have them. Right, I've got quite an interesting question that's come up from Miss Widad again. She says, I appreciate you sharing your experience with us. It's pretty hard during the pandemic, but I'm doing my best. Question for teachers: does the motivation level of students differ according to gender? I'm not sure about that. I've not really thought about it. It is an interesting question, something that could be researched, I guess. Let me have a look. I'm going to go on to the ELT Journal, as it is, English Language Teaching Journal. It's by Oxford University Press. And let me see. So let me share my website. So here we are, the ELT Journal from Oxford. Let's have a look at motivation. Students. I know traditionally there's student motivation with regards to ensuring that there's intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. And you know, that's my understanding of motivation. Let me put motivation and agenda. Let's see if there's been any research about this. Again, I'll be quite curious. There is something here from 2014 about online games for young learners and, you know, the performance of online assessment and how this relationship may differ according to learners' ages and genders. Quite an interesting area. The dark side of motivation, teachers' perspectives on unmotivation. And this shows a gender balance with variations in nationality, qualifications and experiences. Yeah. Okay, this looks interesting. Attribution and learning English as a foreign language. Now, I need to gain access to this, so bear with me whilst I get access to it. Fortunately, I have a particular institutional account, so I can go through and sign in with my institution. But whilst I do that, let's have a look at this. There we go. Getting there. Here we go. Yeah. Excuse me. Whilst this is loading up, it's loaded up now. Let's get the PDF. So here we are. Got the PDF. Matthew Peacock. His name rings a bell. Anyway. Attributions which are perceived reasons for success and failure resulting from self-questioning, such as why did I get a poor grade, have received surprisingly little attention in EFL research. Psychologists suggest that attribution is how students learn about themselves and impose order on uncertain events. Okay, so within Hong Kong. Okay, so the links between attribution and gender. So there is an aspect to that, Miss Wadid. Miss Widad. Previous research. So there's been some previous research. This one, really interesting. I wonder how I can share this with everybody. I'm going to download it, of course. It's quite an interesting element. So attribution and gender. Let's see. So that's downloaded. I'll have to share about, but I suppose, Miss Widad, there is some element or some connection between gender and motivation, or gender and attribution. So yeah, have a look, see whether there is. Looking at the final results of this research, students possessed a variety of attribution towards learning EFL, so success in ranked order, so from students, My teacher was a good teacher. Outside class, I looked up words I did not know in a dictionary. I paid attention in class. I read a lot of newspapers, books. I watched TV. And teachers, they suggested that students loved or were interested in English. They revised a lot for tests. They studied hard in class. They paid attention. They read a lot outside of class. And their teacher, number 5, their teacher praised and encouraged them. So if I just share this, you can see the results from students and teachers. And what's really interesting is number 5, where teachers are praising and encouraging their students. So I find that if you want to motivate students and maintain that motivation, one, you could show them this research and say, okay, the best way to become a good student is not just to turn up to class and contribute, but outside of class you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do the other. And also as a teacher, you could look at this work and say, okay, as a teacher, I'm going to help them. I'm going to give them some praise. I'm going to encourage them. I'm going to show them best practice when it comes down to teaching and learning a language. So hopefully that kind of helps out. Right, where are we next? We've got quite a few comments which we'll go through. We're only halfway through. Okay, it's just half an hour so far. Okay, so we've got AB Photography. Hi Martin, I found your trial lesson videos helpful. Can you discuss how you go about creating your interactive activities for topics? Right. Well, I suppose in terms of interactive material or interactive, the lesson as it's interactive, my philosophy for English teaching and English learning is that teachers need to give the students space to accommodate their requirements and for students to voice their views. Now, in terms of interactive activities for topics, well, I did make a video recently of, bear with me, I need to have a look. What was it called? How I use PowerPoint and Preply to teach online. And I've also used the online whiteboard, 10 ideas for using a whiteboard with lessons. And in that video about using the whiteboard in lessons, I show you some ideas, some interactive activities. And what I do is if I want to teach a particular grammar point, I tend to look at the whiteboard and go, okay, I'm going to create a timeline, and within this timeline I'm going to elicit from the student past, now, future. And it's like, okay, if we're looking at the present perfect, for example, where does it start? So I have bought a new car. Where does it start? Does it start in the past? Does it start now? Or does it start in the future? And from that, you're eliciting from the student. You go, okay, draw a line, a quick vertical line where you think it starts. And boom, you draw a quick line. And okay, where does it end? Does it end before that line in the past? Does it go backwards in time? Does it go forwards in time? How far forward? Okay, it goes forward. To what point? Does it continue now? Does it continue in the future? So what would be best way? So you got it from the past and you draw the line to now, I guess. Would I be able to do this? I guess I could. No, I'm not going to do it. Anyway, you draw the line and you elicit from the student. And then the next question is, okay, how am I going to try and get the students to produce the language? That's the next question that comes onto my mind. And I go, well, okay, I'm going to choose an activity which is more interesting, I guess. One thing that I mentioned about how to make lessons interesting is the activity. So if you want to make an interesting lesson or an activity, make sure that you're getting the student to do something. And in this case, the common thing is a gap fill. The gap fill is the first sort of activity that all English teachers learn. There's a variety of other activities that you could do. There's matching exercises, so matching keywords to definitions and meanings. There's the picture matching, which I mentioned in the online whiteboard video, where you're matching the words with the pictures, or you give students particular pictures and you say, okay, I want you to use the pictures as an idea to help you produce the language. So you have maybe a picture of breakfast and go, okay, I want you to use the present perfect with this picture of breakfast. And they say, okay, I have had breakfast now. Or you have a picture of a car, I have bought a new car now. Or, any sorts of pictures. And that will actually help you to produce more interactive activities. So using the material will help you drive the lesson forward, and the material is there to guide the student. It's not the main focus. The focus is getting the student to produce the language, but it's there to guide the student and to prompt the student. So that's how I go about creating the interactive material. And, if you've watched that video on my trial lesson, I basically use prompts to get the student to produce the language. And then, what I'm doing is, listening to the student is important, but also making a note in a notebook or, with a pen. And what I do, which I can show you, funny enough. Let's have a look early on. So, for example, I start making notes. I'm not sure if you can see that, of language that the student uses, and notes of language which wasn't used. And I tend to look at that and go, okay, I give them examples of language which was suitable and language which needs improving. So getting the students to speak is one thing, but also giving that feedback, praising them on good language, and then offering advice on more appropriate language. So that's how I make it more interactive, I guess. And interactive in the sense of the students communicating, I'm listening, and then I provide feedback, and then it's back and forth, interactive in that sense. So I hope that helps. Right, we got another thing here. So Victor says, I've been trying to change more the sources with younger students. I normally start with conversation, later I correct homework. After that we go to the traditional content, and then I try to work with something a little more dynamic, such as music and games. Really good. I'm pleased. Music, games, really good. Funny enough, there was one activity that I was taught, and it was about a storyboard. Traditionally a storyboard would be a piece of paper where you draw the story and then you write the story. That's a traditional storyboard. So one idea involved music. So rather than visual drawings, you give the student a sort of description or the backbone of the story, and you give them a piece of paper. Actually, I should make a video of this. Again, it would be really useful to share because it was such a creative idea. So essentially you're using the music to prompt adjectives, and the students then use that adjective in the story, or to provide an idea of atmosphere and that sort of thing. So you would have quite lively music, and you start off and what's the first thing that you think of? You hear the lively music, and then it connects to the person that you're introducing. So lively music, and then you're introduced to a new character. How would you describe this character? And you play classical music, and then the first character needs to go to work and is running late, and you've got like this really fast-paced music, and how would this person feel? And it's quite interesting and quite creative, but I really need to try and create another video on that because it's kind of difficult to explain, but I hope you get the gist of it. Miss Widad says, I just wanted to know your opinion and the opinion of other teachers according to your experience. I suppose that's with regards to the previous question about does the motivation level of students differ according to gender? I guess so. Yep, you're very welcome, AB Photography. And yeah, quite an interesting focus on music and that sort of thing. I have used movies in the past, or films, but I'm not so keen on that because it's something that students could do in their free time. With the accessibility of live streaming nowadays, you've got Netflix, you've got Amazon Prime, you've got BBC iPlayer, you've got all these streaming services, Disney Plus. Students have greater access to a variety of movies and films in the target language that they're studying, that I think having movies and films in classrooms nowadays is redundant. I think it's more important to focus on language and providing the student with language that they can communicate and use, essentially. That's what I would recommend. Right, any other questions? I'll be happy to cover a couple of other questions. We've looked at discipline, we've looked at quite a lot actually. We've looked at motivation levels with gender. I suppose what we could do, if we were able to, is have a look at more from the ELT Journal. And Miss Widad, you're very welcome. It's great for you to join us. I really appreciate it. Right, so in terms of ELT Journal, if you're not sure of this, definitely recommend it for those practitioners, teachers, English language teachers that want to develop their awareness. So ELT Journal, let me share the link. Very, very good. I totally agree. I think with regards to Victor, I think using films in the classroom is difficult. When I have used movies in the classroom, I've tended to get students to focus on characters and describing the characters and listening for particular information. So for example, Love Actually is quite a good movie because it has a variety of different characters in it, and I get the students, I give them, okay, so these are the headshots of all the characters. What I want you to do is to find out the name, their job or what they do, and who they are connected with, and that's what I've done in the past. I think flipping the lesson, as we call it, getting the students to complete tasks outside of the lesson for self-study, and then coming in and sharing their work with the students with each other, I think that's more beneficial than actually sitting down, watching the movie and making notes, because there's nothing really interactive. I've mentioned about interaction. I think interaction is the key principle for any language. Whatever language you're going to be studying, interaction is the most important thing, because without communication and interaction, a language is redundant. People study Latin, for example, and Latin does serve a purpose, but it's not really considered a language which people use nowadays in the form of interaction. I'm sure there's some Latin speakers, I can't speak for everyone, but I guess in terms of the language Latin, I'm sure there's some that would communicate happily in Latin, but it's not a language that I would consider as not important, but as required as others to communicate in. And interaction is the key concept for me of learning a language, because essentially all the students and myself, if I were to learn a language, is to communicate and to interact with people and to make myself understood, I guess. Yeah. Right, so in terms of the ERT Journal, here we are. Definitely well worth it. There's a couple of things. There's the 75th anniversary of the ELT Journal, which was marked last year, 2021. Got key concepts in ELT. We've got articles and videos and a view from here. Now, the latest issue is January 2022, and this is something that I've not actually looked at yet. So I'm quite curious what sort of areas that have been published, and insights into emergency remote teaching and EFL. Quite an interesting aspect of teaching, I suppose. The transition to emergency remote teaching in response has spawned many research studies. However, studies exploring EFL instructors' emotions, in-class experiences, relationships, and their colleagues during the pandemic are scarce. Quite an interesting study. I think this would be quite useful, and quite an interesting article. I'm going to have a look at this a bit later. Anyway, got a few more questions coming up. Got from AB Photography. I don't know your name. Sorry, I'm going to use your username. How do you manage students' expectations with regards to how quickly they will improve? Now, you can do this through essentially a tutorial or progress review. You could go, okay, in terms of, for example, IELTS. I tutor a lot of students privately to prepare for the IELTS, and I say, okay, to get a certain band, what you need to do is, in the class, we're going to be focusing on your speaking and your communication interactive skills, and outside of class I want you to focus on these areas. This is what I always outline to students at the beginning, so they know what is expected of them during the course. And after that, after the first few, after the first week or the second week, we go back and we go, okay, how do you feel with regards to your speaking? Do you feel more comfortable? Do you want to focus a bit more on your speaking? And what about vocabulary? How do you feel with your vocabulary? And it's a constant negotiation between the student and myself as a tutor. Obviously, I've had students in the past that wish to exceed and accelerate their level, very, very quickly. And for me, I explain to them that, okay, your level at the moment is intermediate, but to get to upper intermediate, these are the things that you need to do outside of lessons. We can spend an hour together every day focusing and improving your English, but if you're not going to put in the work outside of class, you'll notice that your progress will be diminished. As some tutors receive student feedback like, my teacher was unable to get me to upper intermediate, for example. I'm still at intermediate, and I go back to them and I say, well, did you look at incorporating my recommendations outside of the lessons? If you did, what did you do? Did you stick to it? How widely did you read? How widely did you listen to different things? How widely did you communicate? Did you switch your phone from its first language to English? Are you using your phone in English? If you are, then that's good. And what do you think you could do better? What certain weaknesses do you consider? And it's really getting students aware of how they are able to improve it. And there was that research which I shared earlier on about what was it? Attribution and achievement, motivation. And there were the 5 principles or 5 key aspects that was shared in this article of what students did to improve, and 5 things that teachers considered students were able to do. So this is how I would manage student expectation, and if they wish to achieve hugely quickly, then I try and go, well, okay, these are the ways you can improve, and this is the way you can achieve a band 7 or a band 8 in IELTS. Right, Donato Ducate is here. Hi, Martin, greetings from Maracay, Venezuela. Hello, welcome. Thank you ever so much for joining me. Right, Michael's here. He says, hello, Martin, good to see you. Good to see you, Michael. Thank you for joining me. Victor says, I always comment about words that comes from Latin in my Portuguese lessons. For example, Sunday in Portuguese is domingo. That comes from Dies Dominica, Day of the Lord. Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess in terms of Latin, it's actually quite good to learn Latin, because a lot of the Romance languages, like French, Portuguese, Spanish, Italian, originate from Latin. So I guess in a sense, learning Latin will definitely help you, whereas English is a combination of Latin, Greek, and Germanic languages, and we've also incorporated a lot as well. Okay, and Victor says, I had a student that intended to be fluent in Portuguese in 6 months and with perfect accent. I had to tell him it was not reasonable. And in terms of students aspiring to achieve a native-like accent, that's commendable. That's hugely commendable. And if they do achieve that, then you can see they've put in the work to improve their English or their second language in that case. And I think they've put in so much effort. They've exposed themselves to the English language or whatever language they're studying to such an extent that they are speaking a native-esque English or Portuguese or whatever. But within 6 months, it's not going to be achieved. I've known students who have studied English for 15 years, and they're using English. They're very, very good English speakers, but they still have an element of their first language, which influences English. And, you know, to be honest, what is wrong with their original accent? There's nothing wrong with that. And I think, to be honest, it's nice to have variety of accents and variety of Englishes, rather than having a sort of framed idea of this is what English is, or this is what Portuguese is, and this is what I'm going to achieve. Right, now, we've had quite a few questions, and huge thanks for everybody joining me today. We're going to finish off very soon with a poem. Let me go back to here and have a look at a poem. I'm going to read a poem and finish off. Let me see if I can find something related to what we were looking at today, but let's see. Right, I might not read a poem. Well, I might read a poem from Yeats here, W.B. Yeats from Ireland, I believe. And I thought I would look at a particular book called Mother Tongue by Bill Bryson, because we were talking about native-esque language learning. I'm going to read a few points about this because I think this is crucial. You know, if you've not read Bill Bryson, please do, because it's so insightful. I'm going to read about English and how it's used around the world, and how it makes it so much more interesting. So, more than 300 million people in the world speak English, and the rest, it sometimes seems, try to. It would be charitable to say that the results are sometimes mixed. Considering this hearty announcement in a Yugoslavian hotel, the flattering of underwear with pleasure is the job of the chambermaid. Turn to her straight away. Or this warning to motorists in Tokyo, when a passenger of the foot heave in sight, tootle the horn, trumpet at him melodiously at first, but if he still obstacles your passage, then tootle him with vigour. All these instructions grace in a packet of fast food from Italy. Besmear a backing pan, previously buttered with a good tomato sauce, and after dispose the cannelloni, lightly distanced between them in a only couch. Clearly the writer of that message was not about to let a little ignorance of English stand in the way of a good meal. In fact, it would appear that one of the beauties of the English language is that with even the most tenuous grasp you can speak volumes if you were to show enough enthusiasm, a willingness to tootle with vigour, as if it were. To be fair, English is full of booby traps for the unwary foreigner. Any language where the unassuming fly signifies an annoying insect, a means of travel, and a critical part of a gentleman's apparel is clearly asking to be mangled. Imagine being a foreigner and having to learn that in English one tells a lie but the truth. That an American who says I could care less means the same thing as someone who says I couldn't care less. That a sign in a shop saying all items not on sale doesn't mean literally what it says, that every item is not on sale, but rather that only some of the items are on sale, that when a person asks to you, how do you do, he'll be taken aback if you reply with the impeccable logic, how do I do what? The complexities of the English language are such that even native speakers cannot always communicate effectively, as almost every Briton learns on his first day in America. Indeed, Robert Birchfield, editor of the Oxford English Dictionary, created a stir in linguistic circles on both sides of the Atlantic when he announced his disbelief that American English and English are drifting apart so remorselessly that one day the two nations may not be able to understand understand each other at all. Fascinating. So in terms of, native speakers being able to not understand each other, completely fascinating. Right, I'm going to finish off with a very quick poem, as always, and I have read a variety of poems, and this one I'm going to read is by Yeats, and it's My House. Something where I'm at the moment, I guess, but My House. An ancient bridge and a more ancient tower, a farmhouse that is sheltered by its wall, an acre of stony ground, where the symbolic rose can break in flower. Old ragged elms, old thorns innumerable, the sound of the rain or sound of every wind that blows, the stilted water hen, crossing stream again, scared by the splashing of a dozen cows. A winding stair, a chamber arched with stone, a grey stone fireplace with an open hearth, a candle on written page. Il penserosos platonist toiled on, in some light chamber shadowing forth, how the demonic rage imagined everything. Benighted travellers from markets and from fairs have seen his midnight candle glimmering. 2 men have founded here. A man at arms gathered a score of horse and spent his days in this tumultuous spot, where through long wars and sudden night alarms his dwindling score and he seemed castaways, forgetting and forgot. And I, that after me my bodily hairs may find, to exalt a lonely mind, befitting emblems of adversity. Yeah, quite dark, I guess. But My House. Right, I'm going to leave it there. So thank you ever so much for everybody joining. I really appreciate it. And also a huge thanks to all the questions that were asked. I'll see you this Sunday. Sunday at 12 p.m. UK time, so an hour earlier. And a huge thanks for, your insight, and any questions then I'll be happy to answer them. So in the meantime, take care, stay safe, and good luck with your language journey, good luck with your language learning, and I look forward to seeing you on Sunday. Take care, bye bye, stay safe, and happy teaching, happy learning. Bye bye.